Okay, we're rolling.
Okay, good. I'll call the regular meeting of the town council to order. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Dombrowski,
Here.
Mrs. Ingles,
Here.
Mr. Irwin,
Here.
Mr. Marshall,
Here.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Here.
Mr. Paul,
I am here.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Here.
Mr. Ryan,
Here.
Mr. Soms.
Here.
9 here, 0 absent.
Thank you, Roxanne. At this point, this is our first regular meeting since the passing of Linda Davis, so I would ask for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you, everyone. We all know what Linda meant to most of us. She will be dearly missed. At this point, I have no presentations. Are there any residents or property owners who wish to address the council?
Yes, it's my first time addressing the council, so I believe I'm supposed to state my name and address. Chris Glacken, 5 Allen Lane, Gales Ferry, Connecticut. My question is in regards to the planning and zoning alternate position that I believe we're discussing to be filled. I know Hillary Evans is one of the people that is a candidate for that. I believe the other person that's being discussed is Terry Alt. I know there are some questions that I believe Ms. Ingles brought up and Mr. Soms also had in regards to some social media posts of Hillary's that were in question. I would like to know what those are. And then in regards to Mr. Alt, I'm curious if the same scrutiny was paid to his social media page. There are quite a number of disturbing things on that page. If it is the same Mr. Alt, I don't know if it is, but he's the only one I could find. And I saw Groton and New London. Some of the things that were on there, 3%er, Confederate flag, Muslim skull crusher, oath keeper, Antifa hunting permit, illegal alien hunting permit. So many of these posts seem to advocate violence. And like I said, maybe it's not the same person, but if it is, I would like the board to look at that and really take an internal look on what social media posts we're comparing and what is it that Miss Evans posted that is in question, and if it's anywhere even paling into comparison to this. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the information is that since the council took no action and there were some questions, it was referred back to admin for their consideration. So it is not to the full council yet. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other? Yep. Any other citizens like to make comment? Nate?
Yeah, Nate Woody, 770 Long Cove Road. I just want to congratulate this council on reaching a new low of partisan and disrespect for the hardworking volunteers of this town in withdrawing Hillary Evans in December after a unanimous vote by the admin committee. And then for that same committee to vote to get her nomination tonight, this council has decided to slander someone who has done nothing but work hard for this town and dedicated hours of service to this town. You've achieved new low. The last 3 chairs of the Planning and Zoning Commission told you were doing the wrong thing, but you ignored it, you knew better, and you moved forward. I do, however, want to thank Councilor Irwin for admitting that the only qualification that he's applying for choosing the next person on Planning and Zoning Commission is their party. I appreciate that. So what he probably doesn't know is the reason that the Planning and Zoning Commission is currently Democrat heavy is because the RTC has been sending us candidates for the last couple of years who have left shortly after they've joined the commission. And so the reason for the imbalance is because of the quality of the candidates that you've been sending us. So the other thing I want to point out is the obvious is that this council appears to have a problem with women who have opinions. So when you railroaded Nicole Cruz Glacken, I assumed that it was kind of a one-off and something had happened, and this council decided to take something the wrong way. Now you've gone and done the same thing to Hillary Evans. And so we have 2 Democratic women who apparently have opinions and dare to express it, and you guys are afraid of that. I was born in New England. I'm proud of being a New Englander. I know that this republic was founded on dissent. and I support dissent. And I'm not afraid of someone disagreeing with me. I think it's sad that this council is. To that end, effective immediately, I'm resigning from the Planning and Zoning Commission. My letter of resignation will be in your inbox shortly. So there's another vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I encourage Ms. Evans to apply again. Make this council suffer through another round of embarrassment of refusing to approve a qualified nominee. It makes this council look far worse than it makes you look, Ms. Evans. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Nate. Anybody else like to address the council? Seeing none, moving forward. I have no committee, commission, or board reports. I'll entertain a motion to review approval of the prior meeting minutes.
So
Kevin?
move.
Do I hear a
I'll
second?
second. I'll second.
Okay, Naomi, did you?
I just wanted to make a comment. We didn't do the Pledge of Allegiance. Could we do that very quickly?
Oh, sure, okay. Please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance
Pledge allegiance
to the flag
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and
liberty
justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Just who moved the minutes? I
Yeah,
know John Marshall.
I'm gonna call it again, Roxanne.
Okay,
I'm not sure what
right.
happened there. So I'll entertain a motion to approve and review and approve of the prior meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear
Second,
a second?
Counselor Ryan.
Thank you. Any discussion, corrections, additions? Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Paul, Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, you have the communications list on the portal. I have no referrals. Subcommittee liaison reports, starting with admin.
Admin met tonight, hefty agenda. So to be clear, the admin committee did not approve Ms. Evans' name to go forward as an alternate for the planning and zoning seat. Neither did we approve Mr. Alt. There is a question that we need to, we certainly will consider Chris Galakin's comments, and we will, the thing with, we will look at the social media. We don't scrutinize it, but when it's brought to us, we look at it. So we will certainly look at it. I don't know if it's the same Mr. Alt, but we'll look at that. But there is a question about minority representation and the alternate segment of the commission. If we were to approve Mr. Alt, that would make all 3 alternate seats Republicans. And we're not, we need to look at whether or not that is permissible under minority representation, or if minority representation applies to the entirety of the board and not just the subset. So we'll be looking at that. We did not move on the STR ordinance. We chose to table it until after the planning and zoning meeting tomorrow night to see how zoning wants to proceed. At that point, we will have better information about how the council needs to proceed with the ordinance. And I think the rest is, we have quite a few appointments on the agenda for tonight. And that's my report.
Any questions for admin? Community relations.
We have not met. We did not meet last month, and our meeting later this month. I have no report.
Okay, thank you. Finance.
As Councilor Solms, Town Council Finance Committee held its regular meeting last Wednesday, January 5th at 5 p.m. by video conference. Finance Director Marcia Hancock introduced and the committee welcomed Ledyard's new Finance Director, Matt Bonin, who comes to Ledyard with substantial experience as a municipal auditor for multiple towns, including Ledyard. Ms. Hancock reported that the annual audit was submitted on December 29th prior to the deadline, and that the auditors will attend the Finance Committee's meeting on January 19th next week to present and discuss the report. All counselors and the Board of Ed are welcome, as is the public, to attend that meeting and hear their report. The committee continued to discuss the ARPA funding project list and is still working on a set of criteria for project selection and prioritization, which will be discussed at its next meeting. The committee also discussed holding a public hearing to receive public input on the projects proposed for ARPA funding. Committee discussed but did not act to approve a refund for Mr. Paul Mogul, who submitted an application to the Zoning Board of Appeals to reverse the decision of the zoning enforcement officer. No action was taken because the committee learned of additional supporting documentation that we still need to review. The budget workshops for fiscal 22-23 are scheduled to begin with department head meetings on March 10, 14, and 17, starting at 1 p.m. each day. These meetings are open to the public and are a good way to understand the town's budgeting process, and everything else is on the agenda for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for finance? Land use, Mr. Paul.
Yes, good evening, counselors. We met Monday, January 3rd at 6 p.m. We did talk about the refund for Paul Mogul. We had recommended to the council that they refund that based on the state being silent on that. And that was our recommendation, was to refund. Looking at my notes here. We also recommended and moved a motion to recommend to the council that we change the ordinance to include $0 in there as well. And you'll see that, I believe, on the agenda tonight. We also met with Mr. Holdridge. They are trying to nominate a greenway, the Tri-Town Trail. There was a few questions about that before we could really act on it, so we're tabling that. We asked that they talk to Juliet for their application on that, and that would make that a greenway so they could get grants and funding for that. So that is something that we're going to continue to talk about. We're also starting to work on the properties from the town and going through those as well. And that is my report.
Thank you. Any questions for land use? Moving on to liaison reports. Are there any liaison reports? John.
Good evening, everyone. Public safety met last month, and we're looking at redoing our physical, how we handle the physicals for the fire personnel. So we're looking at 3 vendors right now because the way physicals are done right now, they could be better. So we're looking to improve the process and to make sure our firefighters are healthy and able to perform their duties. Also, right now, we can only do it during the school months because we use those facilities to perform the physicals. So if someone joins, say in June, they can't be active until September. And that's not good. So we're looking to spend between $300 and $600 per physical to be about $35,000 total cost. And they're going to handle that during the budget process. We're also applying for a couple of grants at the moment. They're on the agenda tonight. One is for an air compressor that they can leave in-house. Because right now, Ledyard has to come down to Gales Ferry, and the full-timers have to leave the firehouse for a couple hours, come down, fill the backpacks up, and then bring them back. It's just not the best situation. Also, another savings will be that R17 currently has an onboard air compressor. And if we have one in-house, we won't need to replace that truck with another truck that has an onboard air compressor. So that'll be a cost savings in the long run. And there's a 5% match for that. The second grant is to purchase new radios. The ones we have now are about 15 years old and are single band. And we'll be purchasing radios with 2 bands in them. And they're compatible with the state of Connecticut statewide system. Now, the cost of these radios is $412,450. There's a 5% match, but the number on the agenda is not quite 5%. So I'm hoping when we get to that in the agenda, that we can clear that up. It's about 1/4% shy of the number. And the rescue truck 27 is having its frame rails replaced. They're rusting out, just as all our vehicles are from all the chemicals on the road. That's gonna be about $48,000 bill. It's only got a few years left on it as it is, but if we replace the rails, we should be able to get another 10 to 15 years out of it. And the building committee met on the 20th and going over a few things. Some of these are old news. At the middle school, there's still some ongoing work. They replaced a couple wires on the mezzanine, still need some handrails up as of the time of the meeting. That might be done at the moment. The ceiling tiles are still an issue in spots. Some are falling out, some have water damage. Now, the ones that are falling out, I haven't seen them yet, but you're supposed to rivet the ceiling mains back to the wall so they can't spread apart when the doors open up. And that's why that's gotta be why the tiles are falling out. It's no other reason why they're falling out. And the water damage, it may not be from a ceiling leak, it might be from condensation on a pipe above it. I gotta get with Wayne and see if he's looked into that yet. He probably has. He's a pretty knowledgeable guy. That's one possibility. A lot better than a leaking roof. There's some rusty screws in the hardware. You know, stupid little things. There's the electrical in the media center tables that I got hooked up. I guess there's plugs on the table and USB ports that were never wired in. And there's a programming issue with the HVC system in the middle school. The outdoor air dampers are not closing. And some dampers aren't even on the graphic. You know, on the display board, there's like a schematic of how the system looks. Some dampers aren't even listed on there. That's kind of strange. Uphill, we're waiting for a replacement light switch. I guess it's a pretty fancy light switch. You can't just get them anywhere. So that's from process. And there's more padding needed in the gymnasium. There's like a 4-week lead time. So that will probably be installed sometime this month. And that is my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilor Marshall? Bill, you also had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. This is Councilor Solms. WPCA held its regular meeting online at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, December 21st last year. Groton Utilities evaluated and submitted lead and copper sample results for the Ledyard Center system, 40 samples, and the Gales Ferry system, 20 samples. Both systems remain in compliance with the lead and copper law regulation. The Gallop Hill Pump Station demolition contractor is waiting for frozen ground for easier access through the wetland, and I hope he gets it in the next day or two. Maybe they already did. Groton Utilities is scheduling another video of the inside of the Ledyard Center water tank to plan for painting the tank. On the exterior top, what was seen in earlier photos is just chalky paint, black mold, and lichen. The exterior paint is expected to last at least 20 years, and it's presently at about 15 years old. WPCA is waiting for bids for the sewer plant feed pump and want to know if ARPA funds can be used to pay for the work. And the chair will be already has submitted a request to the mayor's office. And I believe we have that on the ARPA funding list now. The deadline for grant funding applications for the sewer line extension to Ledyard Center is in early January, like 2 days from now. So the chair is attending. He did attend a meeting the week following the WPCA meeting to prepare the application. They're still working on that, and we will be voting on that tonight. Yeah, and also the WPCA continue work discussing the bidding process for water operation and billing services, and is evaluating whether to upgrade the current Kuzi billing system or switch to a new billing system like the one that Groton Utilities uses. Preliminary water and sewer budgets have been prepared by the Finance Department, which the WPCA reviewed. They decided to add 3.5% to the water cost to accommodate the next increase from Groton Utilities. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for WPCA? Any other liaison reports? of Gary?
Yeah, the EDC met January 4th at 6 p.m. The one thing we did talk a little bit in depth about, two things were the discussion concerning the 2022 Ledger Economic Development Strategic Plan. That is something that they are starting to work on and looking for input there. The other thing is we are working on a marketing video for the town of Ledyard. We are asking that possibly to use ARPA funds to fund this, and that would be a marketing video that would feature Ledyard, Gales Ferry to potential businesses and developers. That will like a 3 to 5 minute video that would focus in on that kind of stuff, maybe some interviews with some businesses in town, including the mayor. And this could be used for a bunch of different purposes. The Ledyard would own the material. And it is something that we're going to be kind of working on and hopefully having some real bids and discussion on for the next meeting. And that is my report for them.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Paul? Any other liaison reports? Seeing none, moving on to the mayor.
Good evening, everybody. I'll try to move quick because I know you got a lot on your agenda. COVID cases have been blowing up in town, as you can imagine, 251 new cases in the last 2 weeks. Many of these cases are school-age children, though I would tell you that very, very few children in the state overall, not just in Ledyard, are hospitalized. It's 1.4% of the total hospitalizations are those under 18. Averaging 262 cases a week in the Ledyard Health District service area, so we're a little bit less than that. But we've blown past on the Ledyard side. We've blown past the peak that we had on February 1st of last year of 801 cases, with 1,628 this past week. So, and hospitalizations in New London County are also surpassed last year's peak at 110. So my likely recommendation is going to be to plan to continue to do Zoom meetings probably through February. There is a claim that it will peak within the next week, but we just need to be sure. Vaccination wise, the town is at 70%, which is outstanding. It doesn't mean you're not going to get COVID. I was vaccinated and I got COVID, so it happens to a lot of people. Basically everybody that I was around that also got COVID was also vaccinated. But we are 3 percentage points higher than New London County, excuse me. So I think we're doing really well with that. As you probably know, we conducted 3 different distributions of home test kits that were provided by the state of Connecticut, as well as N95 masks in the later distribution when they arrived. It was a little frantic at first because the governor rolled out the plan on a Monday, and then the kits, as you probably have read in the paper, did not arrive. So we ended up doing it the following week. On a Tuesday morning, we did the senior center, which I got a couple complaints because of traffic down there. It wasn't my first choice, but my first choice was one of the schools that were actually closed the week before. So had they come in the timeline that we were anticipating, we would have done it at a school and it wouldn't have been an issue. But nonetheless, we got 337 kits out at the senior center early in the morning. We did one on Wednesday after that, midday. We did another 337 kits, this time from the Ledyard Town Green, the lower green. That worked pretty well. And then we did the latest one on Sunday at the Ledyard High School. And that one worked well too. That was a bigger distribution. We covered 430 cars, I think it was, with that one, with 900 test kits and a whole bunch of N95s. So we are expecting more, but we haven't had an email from DEMIS lately, Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, saying it more will be coming. So we can't really plan for another one until we know that they're actually going to arrive and preferably are in our hands before we go further. As Councilor Soms alluded to, our new finance director, Matt Bonin, did start. He comes to us from Bloom Shapiro. He has audited the town of Ledyard in the past. He is very happy to be with us, and I think he's a tremendous addition to our staff. So I think you'll appreciate interfacing with Matt, and he's incredibly knowledgeable. There will be a town hall reconfiguration of some offices coming up. All too often we get people that will go to the tax collector's office only to find out they actually needed to go to the tax assessor's office and vice versa. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the tax collectors and the tax assessors in one large office, which they're all happy with. And then anytime a resident goes down and has a question, they're in the right place. So we think that will help. It doesn't take a whole lot for us in the way of reconfiguration, partitioning, et cetera, but it will work well. Our budgeting process in ClearGov is going well. Budgets are due to me by January 27th, and I already have meetings scheduled with all department heads to review all their proposed budgets several days prior to that. I attended the Ledger Prevention Coalition meeting on January 11th. It was in regards to legalization of marijuana, and the discussion was around messaging in terms of what kind of messaging do they want to get out to minors in terms of the legalization, and how does it potentially impact kids and thinking, you know, hey, it's okay for us to start smoking pot. So that's something that they're going to be working on. I will probably be coming to you thinking about the number of grants. We were very successful last year. I think we got 7 grants, lots and lots of money. We now have $3 million, $4 million between the multimodal path from Ledyard Center to the high school and the possible sewer line. So I will probably be coming to the Finance Committee looking for an appropriation to hire on a consultant basis a grant administrator, because there is so much going on here. And I think the need is really there when we're talking about many millions of dollars. So I will come to you on that. An ARPA note, this just came in today. Haven't started on it yet, but we received the CFR final rule for CARES Act funding, which is Code of Federal Regulations, and it is 437 pages. And that is their guidebook on how we can spend the money. So this is like the final. Before they had it, they called it interim guidance, as you may recall. This is now the final guidance. So they have promised that we will receive a summary book, which they said is about 50 pages. So I think I will look forward to the 50-page summary as opposed to the 437-page congressional ruling. Let's see what else. We also held the COG annual meeting. That was one that it was an in-person meeting. I was out because I had COVID. But I was elected to serve the council chair for a consecutive term there. So that's already underway. And we held a COG legislative agenda meeting today. This is where the 22 towns put together their top priorities for our elected officials to see what we can do in the way of legislation to help. So I will tell you, the legislative agenda includes special education money to follow the student, which we all think, we think is very important. We are seeking to move away from single stream recycling. That has proven not to be a good positive process. Quite often, many of the products are contaminated with either broken glass or oils and various things. We have also asked Connecticut Deep to allow crushed glass to be media for roads, sidewalks, and septic systems. Many other states use that for all of the above. Some states actually use asphalt shingles too, and they will merge that in with the asphalt to reuse that on roads instead of landfills. And the last 2 things we had on there were allowing for regional MS4 drainage calculations. You probably recall Connecticut Deep passed new drainage regulations that required the towns to manage and administer all of the stormwater catch basins in the town, measure the depth to the sump, measure the depth to the sand and the sediments in there. There's a lot going on there. So we're looking to see if they will allow a regionalization of that effort. And the Council of Governments would probably look to hire one or two or three engineering firms to just do it for the towns as a whole on a fee-based service, which may prove better for everybody. And then the last thing that we had on there was we are asking for a 2-year extension on the zoning enforcement official certification. That's CASIO certification. And as part of one of the bills that was passed last year, it requires a zoning enforcement official effective this coming year to have a minimum of 2 years of experience in the field before you can test for the CASIO certification. But you cannot work as a zoning enforcement official without 2 years of experience. So it's like the chicken before the egg before the chicken. It puts people in a real predicament. And what it does is smaller towns that only have one of these people, it makes it very difficult for towns like Ledyard, Preston, and other small towns in Eastern Connecticut. Towns that have an assistant to the zoning enforcement official, it works for them because they can get their 2 years of experience under the certified zoning official, then they're able to test. But the way it reads right now, it doesn't work. So we're looking to just get an extension on that to maybe try to clarify the language that they passed in the law last year. And that's all I have for you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the mayor? Naomi?
Mayor Allen.
Yes.
So I was there at the COVID kit distribution at the high school, and it was very efficiently run. So I'd like to say thank you for that.
Thank
But
you.
my question to you is, did any town employees, like emergency services, police, fire, were any test kits and masks put aside for them?
Yes, we held back test kits for town hall, just town government in general, as well as police, fire, and emergency management. We also distributed kits and masks to the Board of Education. That was a separate allotment, and they will have a separate allotment too. So yes, some were reserved.
And for the upcoming distribution, will you also save some aside for the employees, the emergency services?
Probably not, because we saved a good number of them, but we also received from Dominion Energy over in Waterford, all of the nuclear energy towns surrounding Dominion. They provided several cases of the Binax Now tests. So we were able to get an extra allotment. We got 2 cases of those test kits as well. So we have enough right now. So I think we're in good shape, and we're just trying to get as many out to the public as we can.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Oh, and I'm very happy about the grant writer.
Yes, thank you. I think I will bring that forward, but I think it's something that we will definitely need. And we've been, like I said, we've been very successful with grants lately, but that also comes at a cost that somebody needs to administer and account properly. So I'll bring that forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Psalms, you had a question?
Just a question, Mayor, and you may have said it and I missed it. Did you say what the mask policy is in town hall now?
Yeah, so since December 21st, all town buildings are masks required for everybody, vaccinated or unvaccinated. So yeah, that's libraries, senior center, town hall, you name it. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Decision.
Any other questions for the mayor? Seeing none, we have no old business. Would anybody like to amend the the agenda on the new business? And also, because Mr. Ryan may have to leave early, we're going to move the finance stuff first. So,
Hey,
Councilor Psalms, what? Are you
Kevin?
up?
Yeah, I just got a call, and it's not necessary. I can stick around if you want to move ahead with the agenda as is.
Okay, we'll move as is. Would anybody like to move the consent calendar?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Counselor Ingalls, second.
Any discussion? Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mr. Marshall left. He had to go to work.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
So moved. Admin.
I'll vote yes as well. That makes it 8-0.
I'm sorry, I checked you off. I'm sorry, Mr. Irwin. So it's 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Admin, item number 4.
I move to appoint Roger Cotting, Republican, 13 Hemlock Circle, Gales Ferry, to the Retirement Board as a regular member to complete a 3-year term ending January 20th, 2025, filling a vacancy left by Mr. Marquardt.
There a
Second.
second? Okay, discussion?
Mr. Cotting is currently an alternate on that committee, and he is stepping into a regular role.
Thank you. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to appoint Ms. Kimlin Marshall, Republican, 987R Long Cove Road, Gales Ferry, as a regular member of the Cemetery Committee to complete a 3-year term ending April 26th, 2023, filling a vacancy left by Mr. Crowley.
There a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, so just for, public edification, applications are always attached to the agenda. Ms. Marshall spends her personal time cleaning up grave sites, so I think this is a good fit.
Thank you. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to appoint Ms. Jessica Staley, unaffiliated, 497 Colonel Ledyard Highway, Ledyard, as a military veteran member of the Cemetery Committee to complete a 3-year term ending April 26th, 2025, filling a vacancy left by Mr. Bryan.
There a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Again, the application is attached. Ms. Staley is a veteran. There's a seat on this committee for a veteran, and it's been vacant for a good bit, so and she's excited to fill the seat.
Very good. Thank you. Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Next item.
I move to appoint Ms. Kristen Favory, Republican, 1 Lucian Way, Ledyard, to the Ledyard Farmers Market Committee to complete a 3-year term ending May 9th, 2024, filling a vacancy left by Ms. Farris.
I second that. Counselor Rodriguez.
Discussion?
I don't have anything else to say. Read the applications, folks.
Okay, Roxanne, call the roll, please.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Next item.
I move to appoint Mr. Gary St. Ville, Democrat, 2 Thompson Street, Ledyard, as an alternate member to the Inland Wetland and Watercourses Commission to complete a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2023, filling a vacancy left by Mr. Capon.
There a second?
Second. Counselor Rodriguez?
Discussion?
Counselor Sobbs, I just wanted to note that Mr. St. Phil has experience with site preparation plans, which is good experience for inland wetlands. And also thank Mr. Capon for his faithful service on inland wetlands.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Next item?
I move to appoint Ms. Melissa Dyson, Democrat, 31 Hurlbut Road, Gales Ferry, as a regular member to the Historic District Commission to complete a 5-year term ending December 4th, 2023, filling a vacancy left by Ms. Kelly.
There a second?
second,
Thank you.
Bratton,
Any discussion?
Bill
go
has-
ahead.
Yeah, again, I want to thank Ms. Kelly. She did a lot for the town of Ledyard while she was here. She will be sorely missed, and also want to support Missy Dyson. She's a faithful member of the Historic District Commission, has done a lot of work for us on social media, actually done a great job. So she is welcome and happy she's stepping up.
Very good. Thank you. Any other comments? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item?
So the next item is Mr. Alt, and I'm comfortable not moving on this until we do a little homework.
Okay, very good.
This-
Thank,
Andra, this is for the Historic District Commission.
I understand.
Okay,
Mhm.
understood. Yep. Next item?
I think we have to move to table that, don't we?
No, just no action.
Okay.
No motion was made.
Are we good to move on?
Yep, go on,
Yes.
next item.
Okay. I move to appoint Caleb Maloney, Republican, 2 Quail Meadows, Gales Ferry, to the Parks and Recreation Commission to complete a 3-year term ending December 29th, 2023, filling a vacancy left by Mr. Rode. Is it Rode or Rhodey?
I thought it was Rhodey.
Rhodey?
Okay, Mr. Rhodey.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item?
I move to appoint Ms. Marjorie Winslow, Democrat, 3 Wolfridge Gap, Ledyard, to the Senior Citizens Commission to complete a 2-year term ending December 9th, 2022, filling a vacancy left by Ms. Marr.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Pick one, Roxanne. Is any discussion?
Ms. Winslow is currently teaching seniors line dancing and wants to be involved in this commission.
Very good. Hearing that, Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
yes,
Mr. Ryan,
yes,
Mr. Soms,
yes,
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
yes,
Mr. Irwin.
yes,
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Next item, finance.
As Counselor Solms, I move to authorize the mayor to submit a grant application to the federal FY 2020 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program for the purpose of a breathing air compressor system in the amount of $74,986.33. In addition, authorize payment of $3,570.78, a 5% local match from account 210-20501-57300, CNR LFD new equipment.
Is there a
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
So as Counselor Marshall reported, we presently, the Ledyard Fire Company is traveling to Gales Ferry to refill their air bottles, which are a critical component of fighting a fire. We don't want to, if we replace the truck we have, we don't want to buy another onboard compressor. This compressor will be stationed in the firehouse and will save all the time and expense of sending trucks back and forth between Gales Ferry and Ledyard carrying empty and filled bottles. It's a great deal for the town, 5% match. So for $3,570, we're getting $75,000 worth of equipment.
Very good. Any further discussion, questions? Roxanne, please call the roll.
I just want clarification on the 5% match. Bill, what was that dollar amount?
$3,570.78. I did not do the math. I know John mentioned a 5% match on one of these things not being quite right.
I think this is the one.
Yeah, I
No,
have
actually, item
$3,739.30.
14 is the one with the issue.
Oh, okay, 14, very good. Thank you.
All right, just want to make sure I have the right dollar amount. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Roxanne, call the roll.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
yes,
Mr. Ryan,
yes,
Mr. Soms,
Yes,
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
yes,
Mr. Irwin.
yes,
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to authorize the mayor to submit a grant application to the federal FY 2021 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program for the purpose of portable radio equipment acquisition in the amount of $412,450.73 and a 5% matching commitment from the town. In addition, transfer $19,640.51 from account 211-20901-59300. Ambulance fund transfers out to account 210-402-47009. CNR miscellaneous revenue and appropriate $19,640.51, 5% local match to account 210-20401-57300. AES new equipment.
second,
Thank you. Discussion?
So again, as Councilor Marshall reported, this is to replace radios. We applied for this grant last year. It was not accepted. But again, it's a great deal if we do get it. We're going for either 2-band, I thought they were tri-band radios, but bottom line, they're multi-band radios that allow our emergency responders to communicate with multiple systems, including other towns and the state police system. So it's a good program. We're in the process and have been for many years upgrading our radio systems town-wide for our emergency services personnel. This is part of that program.
Good.
For the
Okay.
record, Mayor mentioned the 5% is $20,622.54, which is $982.03 more than what we had originally.
So I would accept that as a friendly amendment to the
Yeah.
original 5% match amount.
I did the calculation, came up with the same numbers, Roxanne.
Okay, I just wanted to clearly state what the dollar Mark.
Yep. So a friendly amendment, any questions? Hearing none, Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
yes,
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Paul.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I'm just reading a chat from Mr.
Oh, yeah, I
Holyfield.
see that. The numbers.
He
submitted came
mentions the
from-
number originally submitted came from the AFG grant calculator when the total was put in the system. So I think we're.
Yeah, we had this issue last year also, Bill, where as we went and did this grant last year, the number came up a little bit off and I couldn't figure it out. And I redid the math several times. And for some reason, while it says 5%, it's really about 0.25% off on this one. And I had the same issue last year. So I don't see it as a major issue in terms of the funding. Like we said, I think the mayor said it was $980 difference. And that's something I could certainly, navigate around. But that grant is already, it's written, and that's actually the number that came off of their calculator. So the math's a little wonky. I don't understand it, but that's the number that they expect us to come up with. So
Yep.
I was pretty happy with that. So.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so next item, I move to authorize Gales Ferry Fire Company to spend a sum not to exceed $48,000 from account 210-20401-54325 fire apparatus for the rescue truck R27 frame rail replacement. In addition, grant a bid waiver to Bulldog Fire Apparatus 86 Stockhouse Road, Bosra, Connecticut 06334.
Second.
Discussion.
So again, as Councilor Marshall reported, R27 is suffering frame rail rot, as many of the towns, especially our emergency equipment vehicles. I'm very pleased that we were able to get someone to take a look at this vehicle and consider replacing the rails as opposed to replacing the entire vehicle. The reason for the bid waiver to Bulldog Fire Apparatus is they're the only guys that do this. And in other words, other companies shops that used to do this kind of work don't anymore. And we are very pleased with the work that Bulldog Fire Apparatus did on our other vehicle in Ledyard Firehouse, which we got back after about a 2-year hiatus, having the engine replaced. So we're pleased with their work. I think it's a good way to save money, and it will extend the Gales Ferry rescue truck for another, I believe it was 5 to 9 years, longer than we had intended or expected. So good investment, I think.
Councilors, Chief Saccone here, but anybody has any questions, but I think the councilor summed it up. We've done our due diligence in caring for town property. Any other way of preserving this vehicle could be in the $150,000 to $200,000 in repairs. We chose to go this way. It'll get us to 10 years. It'll keep the equipment that's on there, which is about $150,000 worth of equipment, including jaws of life, generators, light towers. It'll keep that going for another 5 to 10 years. So they're a very good investment, I believe.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Any
So,
questions?
Yeah, Chair. So through you, so no question, I don't think anybody on this council has a question that the apparatus needs attention. Those frame rails are really bad. The only question I have is on the bid waiver. And understand, Bill, I was absent from the Finance Committee meeting, last one, so I did not have the benefit of having this discussion there, so I apologize. But just for my edification, it sounds like, and you addressed it more than the agenda item did, the 3 companies that we have historically went to for such work, this is specialized work that only those companies do. I'm just unaware if that's the case. It sounds like that's what you were inferring.
Yeah, but I defer to the chief or director of emergency services to speak to that.
Yeah, and if I could direct it to Jeff Smith, you're on. Jeff Smith is our chief engineer. He's gone out to address this with several vendors.
Yeah, I'm here.
Jeff,
So
Jeff, go ahead.
I've spoken with, I did speak with 3 vendors. Bulldog is currently the only one in the state that does it. I spoke with one in North Haven, and they no longer do it because of the time that it takes, where they could do other work for less time and make more money. And then there was a third company who doesn't do it anymore because of Freightliner and their issues that they have with Freightliner. Bulldog uses a vendor out of Vermont who makes the frame rails custom for us. So that is why we went with Bulldog.
Oh, that's interesting. So the frame rails are actually, they're getting completely replaced?
That's correct. So they're going to take the truck, they're going to remove the entire truck, take it all apart, ship one frame rail to Vermont. The gentleman's going to make 2 frame rails out of that one frame rail, matching all the holes and everything like that, ship them back down, and it's going to be all put back together.
Wow, okay.
And it will be protected from rust for at least for the next 10 years.
Yeah. Well, that's, if I recall from the capital plan that was presented, that's was the preferable situation in terms of retirement of fire apparatuses. I guess the only question I have remaining is that, since I have no clue what this work would usually cost, obviously this is the only company in the state that we can go to. But I guess in terms of, the value for the job, does it look like, I guess in a nutshell, are they taking advantage of the situation of being the only company, or is this kind of in line with what you would have
Oh,
expected?
Council, they recently did 2 other frame rails, and they were both in the $40,000 to $50,000 repairs.
Okay. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Sorry, yes.
okay, Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to authorize the mayor to submit an application for E-rate funds and a matching state library grant to cover the installation cost of fiber network at Gales Ferry Library, along with a request for E-rate funds to supplement up to 50% of the annual maintenance and internet cost.
There's a second.
Second. Counselor Ingalls.
Any discussion?
Thank you. So the dollar amounts here are not mentioned unless you go through the action item. But here's what's going on. The Gales Ferry Library does not have fiber optic cable supplying it. And this came to finance, I was approached about it back in December. And I asked Director Bradbury to run an FCC speed test at the Gales Ferry Library to find out what their upload and download speeds are. And for those of you who aren't aware, you can download this FCC speed test on your iPhone or smartphone and do a test on any internet or Wi-Fi connection. And what she came back with was similar to what I have in my house for upload and download speeds, which is great for my house. But in a library, when you start putting 3, 4, 5, 10 people on that connection, it goes slower and slower and slower. And what's been happening with COVID, with students using the library for studying, people coming there to use computers for job applications and everything else that they do, is people get kicked off. They have to log back on. It's hard for the kids to do their homework, yada, yada. The cost, though, is $91,000 to install this fiber. The reason is the library is so far from the fiber network. The network that we're talking about is the Connecticut Education Network. All of our schools are on it. Bill Library is on it. Town Hall is on it. And we did this quite a few years ago. It's great. It's fast, it's reliable, and it's fiber. So the $91,000 cost is exorbitant. If you look at just supplying a cable connection to a library, but on the other hand, it's paid for with universal service fee funds, which come out of every resident and business's telephone bill. And this is part of that long discussion we have about grants. If we don't apply for the grant and use the money, another town will, and we'll be left behind. So on the one hand, we're spending tax dollars. On the other hand, if we don't, they're going to be spent anywhere and we're not going to get the benefit. The ongoing maintenance and internet cost is, I think it's 7,000 a year. I'm sorry, 7,000 a year. Half of that will be 3,600, so it's 7,200 a year. Half of that is 3,600. That will be the town's ongoing cost. So $3,600 a year annually instead of $828, which is what we pay now. So the net cost to the town will be about $2,700, if I recall my math correctly. So I think this is a good deal. I'm sure that the first time I heard it kind of knocked my eyes out seeing the cost, but I think that given that it's universal service fee funds, that's what those funds are collected for. Universal service means providing access to everyone who needs it, regardless of where they are. And that's what we're doing here.
Okay, very good. Any questions?
Yes, so Bill, just a quick question. So the annual fee at Bill Library is about half, well, it's less than half of the 3,600. Is that because it joined early on and secured a lower rate?
So I'm not sure I'm understanding the question, Tim, but we're getting 50% from the state using E-rate funds, and I guess maybe it's federal money, but it's the state library grant is covering half of the cost for 20 years.
No, right. No, I get that. And that reduces our annual cost to $3,600. So I get that. And the entire installation would be paid for if we submit for the grant and et cetera, right? On the agenda item, the last line says the annual fee at Bill Library after the E-rate discount is $1,650.
Oh,
basically the same service.
yeah. I apologize. That I don't know the answer.
Bill, I
but-
can answer.
yeah, go ahead, Gail.
Answer that. The reason it's lower is Bill Library is closer to the hub at the high school, and the fiber goes right by on the way to town hall, so it's not traveling as far.
So
Sure.
the maintenance costs would be lower then.
The maintenance costs on the fiber optic
Okay,
infrastructure.
all right. And then so thank you for that. And then the last question I had is I read the backup information for the item there. And it sounds like the 50% reduction in the annual cost or the annual fee is not a given. It's something we have to apply for every year. Is that true?
Correct.
And is there, I mean, I'm assuming that there's never been a year with the Bill Library, at least, that we haven't gotten that.
No, I've applied every year since 2016. And
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe that we have a guarantee for 20 years with no cost increases. It sounds great. It just gives me pause. So I mean, that's what we expect from this, right? Is 20 years at $3,600. That's what we're all assuming, right? And have no reason to doubt.
And Councilor Ingalls came up with a $55,000 cost over 20 years.
Correct. So no, I'm just
Oh, yeah, no, that's right.
it seems surprising to me that there's no increase in cost or no built-in clause that allows for service increase, because over 20 years, you have to imagine that their cost goes up.
Yeah.
CENs, I mean. So, but hey, okay.
Bill, I guess the same could be said about Comcast, that is the current provider. I mean, you have to believe that Comcast will be providing for an annual increase too, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Thank you, Gail, for your input.
Yes, thank you.
Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes,
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to authorize the mayor to submit a Department of Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, application in the amount of 1.38 million to the Office of Brownfields and Capital Projects Small Business and Community Development Program Unit, Connecticut Communities Challenge Grant Program, Round 1, for the purpose of extending a sewer line extension to Ledyard Center. In addition, appropriate 1.3 million from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, account for Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 of the Ledyard Sewer Line Extension Project. Should the CDBG application not be approved, appropriate the full cost of the Ledyard Sewer Line Extension Project in the amount of 2.76 million from the American Rescue Plan ARPA account.
There's a second.
Second, Counselor Ingalls.
Discussion.
So we have been discussing and planning a multimodal trail for which we have grant funds, which will run from Ledyard Center to the high school. And while we have been designing that multimodal trail, there also was a plan and a discussion to bring sewer from the high school all the way into Ledyard Center to support economic development in the center. The thinking was we need to do those two projects together because the sewer line will follow the exact track of the multimodal trail. And since we have ARPA funds, which among the qualifying projects are water and sewer projects, we could use ARPA funds to pay for this long-awaited sewer line to Ledyard Center. Then along came the CDBG grant, which is 50% of the cost of the sewer line, or 1.38 million. So we want to apply for this so that we can free up 1.38 million in ARPA funds that we've already received for other projects in Ledyard. So again, good deal for the town. And if the grant is not approved, then we'd have to go back to the original plan of using the full amount of ARPA, the full cost paid for with ARPA funds. We have about 4.3 million in ARPA funds, so we can do this, but we'd much rather save 1.38 million and free up those funds. The only challenge that I shouldn't say the only, the major challenge we're facing right now is this application is due on January 14th. The WPCA has been working with their engineering firm since October, if not longer, on this. So there's a very short fuse. We've got to complete the application tomorrow and get it into CDBG, to the state. So that said, I just want to ask the question. I see our town planner, Juliet Hodge, is with us, and I want to see if we are going to be able to meet the deadline tomorrow.
We will if we get some, the remaining information from Weston and Sampson. There's some issues with the budget. There right now on the budget form, it's indicating 2.148 million in ARPA funding versus the 1.3. So I don't have any backup for that budget. There's issues with the budget, and we need some more detail on the projects that we have to identify 5 similar projects,
Yep.
as sort of references. And each one of those projects has to identify the funding source, and if it's from the state funding source, and there's a lot of data that's involved that you have to, add. So we're short there, and two other minor sections. So, I'm willing to come in on Friday to get it in if we need that extra day, but I'm just having a little difficulty communicating with Weston and Sampson.
Yep. Okay, so it's $1.3 million, and I personally feel we should be pulling out all the stops to do this. We do have the collective knowledge on what those 5 past projects cost us. I think we have to search our memory a little bit. I came up with some of the costs, but I can't remember all of them. But I think collectively, we've got some hard work to do to collect the rest of that data, and I want to make sure we do it.
It's the funding sources that are important,
Yeah.
not the
right.
cost of it. I need to know where they came from.
Yep, that along with the cost. I remember discussing all those sources, and the bonding documents should have that. We've just got to dig them up.
All right, we're running out of time.
Yep, I get it.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Questions? Roxanne, call the roll, please.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to approve a revised Appendix A qualifying income schedule in accordance with ordinance 200-005 Rev 1, an ordinance to provide property tax relief for certain homeowners age 65 or over or permanently and totally disabled, Rev 1, as contained in the draft dated December 6, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second, Counselor Ingalls.
Thank you. Discussion?
Thank you. So this is something we do every year. The state has a program to provide tax relief to income qualifying citizens. And every year the state increases the dollar amounts for qualifying low income. And they pass the table along to us. It's included as an attachment, and we attach that as an appendix in the ordinance so that we don't have to rewrite the entire ordinance. So all we're doing is passing along. We're not making any changes to the state numbers for this program.
Thank you. Questions? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to refer the town roof replacement projects to the Permanent Municipal Building Committee to include the following facilities: Bill Library roof, Town Hall roof, Town Hall Annex roof.
And second that, Counselor Rodriguez.
Discussion?
So as we do with all of our building projects, we refer them to the Permanent Municipal Building Committee, and then that committee may choose to hand them off to someone else, but usually on a large project, they run with it, and we get the benefit of their experience in managing building projects. So this motion is just referring the project, and we'll be talking about several projects in the next few items, but this is referring it to the PMBC.
Thank you. Questions? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Paul,
Sorry, yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
So as I mentioned, the next few items will cover roofs. We've had building roofs on the capital plan for a number of years, waiting for either grant money or for roofs to reach their end of life. We are splitting the town hall buildings or the town general government buildings from the school buildings because the school buildings represented a different dollar amount. So the first one or two will address the town building. So I move to approve a resolution appropriating $295,000 for the town roof replacement project and authorizing the issue of bonds and notes in the same amount to finance said appropriation.
Is there a second?
Counselor Ingalls.
Sorry.
So this will cover the town hall annex, and the Bill Library. And you can read in the documentation what's going on with those roofs. The Bill Library is, those shingles have, I'm not sure what the word I want to use is, but they weren't supposed to wear out this fast, but they need to be replaced. Town Hall is at the end of its useful life, needs to be replaced. And the Town Hall Annex is so close that it makes sense financially to combine all three projects, do them all at once, get a better price, rather than wait another 5 years and have to do the Town Hall Annex separately. Another thing to be aware of is that there are solar panels on the Town Hall building and the Bill Library, which were installed. I think the mayor did some research and found they're 13 years old. They're expected to have a 20-year life. They're older model panels, solar panels, I believe, tend to degrade in performance. So our plan is to remove them and not put them back, because the cost to put them back will be on the town, and then they'll only have another 7 years or so minimum life, possibly more, but we think it makes better financial sense not to replace them and then go look for another solar panel project where we can take advantage of newer, higher performing panels and get another tax credit or lease them.
Very good. Questions? With that, Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
yes,
Mr. Irwin.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
And just one thing I forgot to mention, Mr. Chair, this dollar amount for these roofs for the town buildings, we're going out through a state bidding process. So that's why you're not seeing, there were not 3 bids, although I think there are some, you'll see paperwork on bids, but we're going through the state bidding process, which is slightly different.
Okay.
Okay, so next one, I move to approve council resolutions, approving bond resolutions and calling a town meeting to be held virtually on January 26th at 6:15 PM to consider, discuss, and vote on the following. Shall the town of Ledyard appropriate $295,000 for the town roof replacement project and authorize the issue of bonds and notes in the same amount to finance said appropriation?
Is there a second?
Second.
sorry, give it to Mr. Irwin.
So we're going out to bid for all of the roofs together because that will save us some money. So, but again, we have to split them up. We're doing the general government bonds through a town meeting because of the dollar amount. But you'll see in the next few motions that the school buildings will be handled differently, but the bonding is done all together, the total bonding dollar amount.
Okay, so this motion is really just setting the town meeting for the general government roof replacement project.
Correct. And we're just doing a town meeting. There's no townwide referendum on this one.
Okay. Thank you. Questions? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes,
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan.
yes,
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to approve resolution appropriating $6.725 million for various school improvement projects and authorizing issue of bonds and notes in the same amount to finance said appropriation.
second,
So you'll see in the notes on this, or the background documentation, there are 2 schools, Juliet Long and Gales Ferry School, getting new roofs. They are at the end of their life, and we actually have buckets in the attic because they've been at the end of their life. We've been waiting for grant money to do this. We have found some. So we're also going to put solar panels on these roofs at town cost, so that the town is buying the panels and putting them on, and in the hopes that we'll save even more money than if we lease the panels. And we're putting a building management system in one school and we're upgrading an HVAC system in the other. So in total, it's 6.725 million. And this has been in the capital plan for years and years.
Any questions, discussion? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
yes,
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Paul.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to approve council resolutions approving bond resolutions and calling town meeting to be held virtually on February 9, 2022 at 6:30 PM and to adjourn to a referendum on the voting machines on February 22nd, 2022 under the following heading. Shall the town of Ledyard appropriate $6.725 million for various school improvement projects and authorize the issuance of bonds and notes in the same amount to finance the appropriation?
second, Counselor Ingalls.
Thank you. Discussion?
So this is town meeting again, but because the dollar amount is more than 5% of the total budget, it represents a requirement that we go to referendum so that the public, the entire town can vote on this bond resolution.
Okay. Any questions?
I think it's 5% of the tax levy bill.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm sorry, Mary. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes,
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to approve the town council department fiscal year 2022-2023 budget in the amount of $179,000, $751.
second, Counselor Ingalls.
Discussion.
So this, like everything else in the budget, will go through budget deliberations in the coming months, but this is the town council submitting their budget to the general government, just as all the other departments do. It includes salaries for the administrative assistant, the treasurer, as well as the legal firm that the town employs. And it does not include town councilor salaries.
I was waiting for that one. That's the one I was waiting for.
And for the new counselors, there is no salary, just so you know.
What?
I know what you're getting into with. Any further questions or discussion? Hey, Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mr. Psalm,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles, Mrs. Ingles.
Yes,
Oh, there you are. Okay. Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Mr. Irwin, yes.
Mr. Irwin again.
We missed-
I think because you're right next to John and he's not here, I skipped him. I'm sorry.
I like the jazz hands, though. That's pretty. Just on a side note, I have to laugh is that our department budget for the town council is less than what a city councilor in the city of New York makes as an annual salary. Just as I looked it up, and I think that their salary is actually $180,000 per year to be a city
It's in
councilor.
the 100,000 in California too.
Actually, I thought
I
like
would not
LA,
want your job.
LA, I think is $210,000 to be a city councilor in Los Angeles. But anyway, next item, Bill.
I move to approve the town council department fiscal year 2022-23 capital improvement budget in the total amount of $1,500.
Second.
Second.
Oh, give it to Counselor Ryan.
So every year we set aside money for laptops in the event that any of the counselors need a laptop. Most of us use our own. So we often put it in the budget and then some years we take it right back out. But again, we're submitting the budget. We'll deliberate over this dollar amount as we go through the overall budget.
Thank you. Any questions? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item, land use.
I move to amend appendix of ordinance 300-011, Rev 1 zoning board of appeals fee schedules as contained in the draft dated January 4th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
This is the kind of, the state is silent as you read the background information, on charging a fee. So we chose not to strike it, but to put it $0 kind of has a friendly amendment to that. We do not need a public hearing for that because it is just an appendix to the ordinance.
Any questions, comments? So yeah, this came out of the whole thing I did to expound on the
Paul Mogul.
refund request from Paul
Refund, yeah.
Mogul. And looking through the state, I actually went and looked at other towns to see how they handle this for their ZBA. And in the case here, some towns actually still have the fee listed as what we had, similar dollar amounts. Some towns actually listed a $0 amount to the point where the case to the Superior Court had made mention that appealing a ZEO's decision is not an appeal to application for a zoning variance. So they kind of in that kind of thing. So the recommendation was made by me to move this to $0 and not actually strike the amount. That way there was no question going forward where it was in the other item that got removed was the certification of location approvals with DMV for a public hearing. And due to changes in state statute, that is no longer required to have public hearing. It's just done by staff and without public hearings. So that $500 fee was deleted from the fee structure. Any other comments or questions?
Yes,
Roxanne?
and just to clarify that the location approvals are still currently done by the ZBA, not by staff, but there is no public hearing.
Yeah, I think corrected. Thank you, Juliet. Roxanne, you had something?
Yeah, I just want clarification. So for the one that we changed to $0, do you want that to say $0 or no charge?
$0.
Could
Okay,
I recommend it to say no charge so somebody does not think that's a typo?
The Councilor Rodriguez, sir, the problem is that we voted on the $0.
We can change that here.
Okay,
If it's
and the amendment?
a friendly amendment to the motion to change the number from 0 to no charge.
Are you making that amendment? That,
Well, it's actually since Gary made the motion, so he has to accept the friendly amendment.
Yeah, I move to accept that as $0,
But no charge
but no charge.
instead of
Correct.
0. Okay, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
will second that.
Any further discussion or questions? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski.
Yes. Motion,
Mr. Dombrowski?
yes.
Yes, okay. 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, motion carries. At this point, I'll request a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
That meeting is adjourned without exception.
Good
Thank
night,
you,
Good
all.
night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Whit and Nick are now the official adjourners.